Let's do this for the pure motivation of leading all limitless Mother and Father sentient beings to the ultimate. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the five skandhas in the First Noble Truth. When the Buddha is talking about suffering, he says birth is suffering, old age is suffering, death is suffering, sorrow, lamentation, pain, and despair, suffering, being stuck with what you don't like, being separated from what you do like, not getting what you want, all these are suffering. And then at the very end, he says, in short, the five skandhas are suffering. So the five skandhas are what we normally think of as our self, our body, our uh, feelings, our perception, our formations, and our ongoing consciousness. So one of the questions, one of the contemplations that does lead to significant spiritual progress is the question, who am I? And that's really what we're talking about right now. Who am I? Am I the body and everything that goes on in the body, including the mind? Or is there something beyond that? So just we'll start by looking at the skandhas in a little more detail. The first one is form or body. So we have this body was created in our mother before we were conceived. Before you were conceived, you weren't in the body you're in right now. What were you if you weren't in this body? Then we're conceived, we go through the womb period, we're born, and then we are taught to identify with this body. If somebody does something to your body, you're not taught, oh, somebody did something to your body. No, you're taught somebody did something to you as a child. And so children are taught to identify with the body. They gradually learn to identify with the things that come through the senses. They learn to sum up what comes through the senses, and we call that perception. We then have reactions to our perception. Those are called formations or mental formations. And then the result of that, the formations in our brain create an ongoing sense of consciousness, which we consider to be our mind, and we identify with that. So the question is, who am I? Am I this body? Am I these other things that we just mentioned? Or is there something different? Well, there are people who believe that we are the body and we get one shot at life, and when life ends, then the body disintegrates and the mind goes blank. That's it. There's nothing more. Certainly, if all you are is the body, then after death, the body disintegrates. When all the brain cells die due to lack of oxygen, your mind goes dark, and your sense, you don't have senses anymore, you don't have perception anymore, and you don't have formations anymore. So according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead teachings, when somebody dies and all they know are the five skandhas as who they are, they experience death as passing out, and they pass out for the entire first bardo and wake up at the beginning of the second bardo. But if you have some meditation experience and have some experience of aspects of you that are not part of the five skandhas, then you have a chance when you die to remain conscious as you go through the first bardo. And the first bardo is a great, great, great opportunity to fully awaken without very much effort, uh, if you can manage to be awake. So, uh, so one of the things that happens when we meditate and when we practice is that we start to have some experiences that are beyond the skandhas. I remember one time I was meditating and it felt subjectively like my body turned into light. I was no longer in the room that I had been in. I was in an undefined space with no boundaries and no form. And it appeared to be an ocean made of love. And there was no time. Time completely stopped. And all of that was completely beyond the skandhas. Um, there are many, many other types of experiences we can have as meditators and as spiritual practitioners that introduce us to and get us comfortable with aspects of our being that are beyond. Uh, any questions up to this point? So there's a story I heard once. Uh, this man heard about a very wise, enlightened being who lived in the mountains, and he decided to go see him. And it took great effort and many days to find him. Finally, he climbed up partway up this mountain, and he came to the place where this great master was said to live. And where the master lived was surrounded by a fence with a gate which was locked. And so he went up to the gate, and he said, and there was a boy there, maybe 12 years old, at the gate. On the other side, the gate was locked. And the man said, I would like to see the master. And the boy said, fine, tell me who you are. And so, the man said, well, my name is so and so. And the boy said, I didn't ask you what your name was. I asked you who you are. And he said, well, I'm a such and such occupation from such and such place. And the boy said, I didn't ask you what your occupation was. I asked you who you are. And so he gave various answers. He talked about his family, his education, all kinds of things. And every time he gave an answer like that, the boy said, I didn't ask you about that. I asked you who you are. And so finally the man got very discouraged, and the boy said, tell me who you are. And he said, I have no idea. And whereupon the boy unlocked the gate and said, "Welcome, the master will see you now." So uh, having no idea who you are is an important stage on the path. Um, when we come to the Dharma, we think we know who we are. We have lots of ideas about who we are, and as you look into it deeper and deeper, you discover that all of what you thought you knew was in fact wrong. Um, there are many, many experiences that you can have that show you um, uh, glimpses of who you really are. Um, I one time was in the Yukon, and I was staying in a little cabin in the middle of the forest, and there was nothing really very near. And that particular year was a very bad year for bears. There was very few salmon. Was very few berries, and the bears were starving, and so they got very aggressive. And there was a native man lived maybe a kilometer away from where I was, and he had a dog that only barked when bears were present. So one night in the middle of the night, I had to go to the bathroom, so I got up and went outside. And when I was finished, I went back in to my cabin, and the cabin door was a flimsy little door that was held shut by a bent nail. Uh, not no security at all, and there were no windows in the cabin. And so I got back into bed. I had become extremely cold going outside, so that made me wide awake, and I was lying there, and I heard the Indians' dog bark, which meant that there was a bear in the area somewhere. And about 5 or 10 minutes later, I heard some scratching at my door, and I could hear the bear breathing. And so I knew the bear was at my door. And if the bear broke into the cabin, there would be no way I could defend myself. And when I realized that, I spontaneously left my body, and I existed in a non-solid form about 3 feet above my body, and I could look down and see my body lying there in bed. And because I'd been cold, I had been lying there with my arms crossed. So when I looked down, it was like this corpse was there, and the bear didn't come in, and I gradually went back into my body. But at that time, I didn't identify with the body. I identified with the part that left the body, which is different from any of the five skandhas, including the mind. I had a similar experience in meditation many years later, where I felt I left my body and existed about 6 feet to the right, and I could look back and watch the body do what it does. And again, I didn't identify with the body or any of the skandhas at that time. So how does one uh, get to see the proper answer to who am I? Well, we have these meditation practices, particularly insight practice, where you practice mindfulness of the mind and body. And if you do that diligently and over time, you gradually have insights into what's going on, and you gradually come to see some of the wrong views you have about who you are and what you are, and those views gradually go away. Um, that also happens in Vajrayana practice. For example, in mantra sadhana practice, you build up a visualization and you say the mantra, and then at the end you dissolve everything into emptiness, and you get some practice that way, being a little bit beyond the five skandhas. One of the things I used to do at the recommendation of one of my teachers was I would sit in meditation and try to imagine who I was after the body had died and disintegrated. And I don't know of a formal practice that actually does that, but one of my teachers recommended, and I did that quite diligently for many, many years. And it's a very interesting practice. If you, or another way you can do it is just to sit and meditate, and then remind yourself that, okay, this body is temporary. At some point it will disintegrate, and I will go on. According to the Buddhist teaching, we don't really die. At the time of death, our body and mind dies, but something goes on. So you can disidentify with each of the aspects of the skandha, and then sort of imagine or visualize what's left after you do that. And that might be helpful in gradually learning to de-identify. There's a story in the Buddhist scriptures about one of the Buddha's previous lives, and he was captured by a king from another culture, and that king, for whatever reason, decided to torture and kill him, and he did that by cutting off pieces of the Buddha's body, piece by piece. And in the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha refers to that and tells Subhuti, had at that time, if at that time I identified with the body or a separate individuality or a self, then feelings of anger and hatred would have arisen in me. But because I was at that time beyond attachment to those kinds of concepts, I was able to remain in a positive, loving state of mind as this king cut away my body piece by piece. So that's sort of a description of the ultimate detachment from the five skandhas. I don't recommend doing that anytime soon. If it's something we're going to do, well, give it a few billion eons, before you undertake that. There's no hurry for that at all. So what do you think you are? Yes, I'm not hearing anything.
You're muted, Greg.
Yeah.
All right. No. Can you hear me now, sir?
I can hear you now, yeah.
All right. I said, good question.
Yeah.
Nice
One
to see
time-
you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Yeah. One time I did a 3-day retreat, and it was a residential, one big room, and and for about 18 hours a day, we would get a new partner every 20 minutes, and we would sit down facing each other, and your partner would say, "Tell me who you are," and then you would talk for 10 minutes, and a bell would ring, and then you would say to your partner, "Tell me who you are," and they would talk for 10 minutes. So we did that 18 hours a day for 3 days. And I'll tell you quite clearly that after about 3 or 4 hours, you have nothing new left to say. It doesn't matter how complete your memory is or how sharp your mind is. Uh, and then you sit down and somebody says, "Tell me who you are." And you really start to see the unreality of any answer that you give. Any answer that you give is all about your characteristics or your attributes or things like that, and has nothing to do with who you are. And yeah, we did get like 5 or 10 minute breaks for a very, very small amount of food. But we did this about 18 hours a day for 3 days. Um, so the good news, there was no penalty points for repeating yourself. That was about the only good news, but it was a very helpful retreat. I think that kind of retreat would be a good idea sometime. I don't know if any of you know who Ramana Maharshi was. He was a great fully enlightened being. I believe he died in about 1950. And he basically, as a child, just sort of tuned out of society. And he would go to this ashram and find some out of the way place and just sit and do nothing. And after a while, they started to notice him. So he had to make other plans. And when he was a young man, he went out into the wilderness and he just sat. And even if a fly crawled across his face and over his eyeball, he wouldn't do anything. He just did absolutely nothing. And he attained full awakening. And I saw a video. There aren't many videos of him teaching because, back then and before 1950, that was pretty difficult technology. But I did find one once. And what would happen is people would come and sit in front of him and ask a question. And to my way of viewing things, most of their questions were about concepts. Like, what about this concept of this or that or something? And Ramana Maharshi would his answer was, "Who wants to know?" And he wouldn't answer the question about the concept. He would say, you should focus on who wants to know the answer to that question and find out who you really are. And it didn't seem like very many people understood that approach, but it was going back to who you are. At the beginning of a question, I can't tell. Yeah. Yeah. So how identified?
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, go ahead.
The word it came out was beautiful.
Pardon?
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I don't often hear.
Yeah.
Take care. I'm listening.
Okay. So my question to you all right now is, how identified do you feel with your body? How identified do you feel with your body? Is your body who you are?
No.
If something happens, yeah, Katsui, you have something?
Oh, did you came here? Hello?
No. How identified do you feel with your mind? Just close your eyes for a few minutes and visualize that death has happened sometime in the past and that your body was buried or burned and and it has disintegrated back into its various elements and your so-called mind at the time of death also stopped. And just close your eyes and try to visualize who you are when you don't have a body and you don't have a mind. Because you don't have a body, you don't have anything coming through you through your senses. You don't have any perception. You don't have any formations arising in your mind or body. At that time, who are you? So are you getting any sense of who you might be at that time? I one time came across a Zen koan, and it was somebody sitting in front of a Zen master, and the master says, "Show me the face you had before your mother and father were born." So when we consider the five skandhas, we can intellectually see that in the future, at the time of death, the five skandhas will uh, end, and hopefully we will go on in some form. We can see that at least intellectually, but we should be able to see very, very clear that before our mother and father were born, we didn't have the body that we're in right now. We didn't have the mind that we have right now. We didn't have anything that we have right now except maybe a few habits and preferences. And you also get to watch the karma play out from some earlier version of you who wasn't necessarily very much like you right now. One time I was doing a retreat with Namdak Rinpoche, and somebody was asking a question about rebirth, but they were asking it in such a way that they had a lot of assumptions in their question that weren't true. They were asking it like I'm in this life and then I go to the next life and I'm another version of me. Since there is no you, since there is stuff, that's pretty hard to be another version of you. So Namjal spent a few minutes talking about how every formation is a different formation, and what carries through some of your habits and interests and preferences and things might carry through. At one point, he said, when a musician dies, then usually another musician is born. So, for example, if you have a strong interest in music or in something else, then that interest may carry through. But it doesn't carry through to a new version of you, it carries through to a new version. And so when that talk was over, I went back to my space and I decided to do an experiment. And I have these partial memories of many, many, many lives. They appear to be partial memories. And so I decided to sit down and try something different. And normally with a past life memory, it would be like I would see outward what my eyes are seeing. So I could see my family, I could see my location, things like that, but I couldn't see myself. So in this experimental meditation, I sat down and turned the eyes back to see who it was that was in this life looking out. And I was very, 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 very shocked because every formation was not me. It was some completely different type of being. And what reminded me very much of a time in the 1950s when I was a teenager. I was living in Edmonton, and I forget, and I think they were Hungarian refugees, or maybe from Czechoslovakia or somewhere. But there were some Eastern European refugees showed up in Edmonton, and they mostly settled very close to where I lived. And to me, they looked like almost like another species because they dressed very differently, they acted very differently. A laborer, for example, would wear a suit and tie to work, and he would carry his lunch in a briefcase. And I just thought all of that was very different than anything I'd seen before. And when I first looked back at my immediately previous life, I looked exactly like these people. I was in Eastern Europe, and I looked more like them than I certainly didn't look anything like my life in Canada. So in your previous lives, you were not really an earlier version of you. You were, when a being takes a new formation, a new birth, you have a body, but the genetics of the body is determined by your parents in your new life, not by whatever you were in your previous life. And you do carry some interests and preferences and habits and things like that with you. But then as you grow up, you're completely reconditioned by your family and your school and your community and so on. And so you really are a very, very different formation than you were before, with only a few things in common with what you were before. And sometimes strong proclivities or interests can't even be carried forward. For example, if you were a musician and strongly interested in music and devoted your life to music, but you happened to be in some place where there wasn't any music or there wasn't much music, maybe there'd be no opportunity for that interest to manifest. So, so if you contemplate, if you sit back and contemplate who you were either long before this life or long after this life, your contemplation will be very difficult because the tendency will be to imagine that it's you in a different time and place. And it won't be you. It will have just a very small number of things in common with you, or maybe hardly any. If the conditioning in the future has been different enough, things can be quite different.
No, I'm unmuting, sir.
Yeah.
Greg, well, I don't know. You're good. You're very good. Oh, I've got joy in my heart, man. I I wish you well.
Thank
I have
you.
nothing to say. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You're doing a good job helping other beings.
Yeah.
No.
Randall has a question.
I have a question, Lama said.
Yeah.
Well, unlike Greg, I don't have a lot of joy in my heart at the moment. Unlike Greg, I don't have a lot of joy in my heart at the moment. I'm really getting confounded by this exercise in imagining myself, finding out who I am and then imagining at the end of all the conversation where I am, like in the Zen koan. But I can only do that now because I'm in a body. I mean, all this is like active imagination. So it's like intellectual exercise, as was mentioned, imagining whatever I'm sensing,
Yeah.
not sensing. This is what? This is like something else, not Randall. This is the universe. It's the the great one of everything. It's like it come to a really hard place here in terms of trying to imagine me without a body, but I can only do that because I'm here in this body, allowing me to have the faculties to shoot off into, like, when you had your out of body experience, in the cabin with the bear, where were the Sakandas? Where were the circle of excuse me, not the circle of life, the circle of origination? It's like, it seems to me this is really a hard place for me to get beyond in terms of knowing anything. There's experiences, but I don't have experiences because I'm in my body. I don't get that I don't have a body to have the experiences of the universe with. Anyway.
So, first thing is, in the outer body experiences, the skandhas all stay behind. And whatever is out there is not part of the skandhas. But what you could do is you could sit down and close your eyes and then visualize that you leave your body just a little bit, like just enough to be clear of it. And then visualize that you look back at your body and you see the body is still there, it's still functioning, it's still perceiving, it's still having mental activity and so on, but you're outside of that and you're looking back at it. What happens in the kinds of experiences I was talking about is that the part of you that's outside the body has no arisings whatsoever. It has awareness, and it's completely calm and positive, but there's no mental activity. Let me tell you a different experience that I had. So in the late 70s, I think it was, I did a Vipassana retreat in Sri Lanka. And I was having, toward the end of the retreat, I was having quite a bit of thoughts. I had in the early part of the retreat, my mind had been very calm, but then it got sort of worked up, and so I was having a lot of mental activity as I was trying to do the Vipassana. And every day at 7 p.m., we had a group meditation in the courtyard of the monastery in Sri Lanka. And I had a little spot that I sat. There was a pillar, and I would sit against that pillar so I had something to lean my back against. And so this one night we were meditating, and all of a sudden I felt something on the top of my head. I had my eyes closed, but I felt sensation in a circle all around the top of my head, a circle about that big. And so, of course, my mind immediately became one-pointed, looking at that sensation and trying to figure out what was happening. And I figured out that it was a very large spider had come down the pillar and sat on the top of my head. And then this big spider crawled down the right side of my face and stopped right over my right eye. And at that point, I knew that if it bit me in the eye, I would go blind because it was a very big spider and probably very poisonous. But all spiders have toxin. And so I just remained completely still, and I completely emptied my mind and had no reaction whatsoever. And eventually the spider crawled down onto my bare arm, and then down onto my leg, and then onto the ground. And at that point, I opened my eyes just to confirm my impression. and it was a very, very big spider. I mean, huge. And but what had happened was the whole time the spider was there, which was probably 30 to 60 seconds, also known as eternity. It seemed like it was there forever. Uh, my mind became completely empty, and my concentration was absolutely perfect. And so once the spider was gone, then the mind kicked up again, and the thoughts started to reoccur, the same thoughts that I'd been having before. And at that point, I spontaneously left my body and moved about 6 feet to the right. And I identified with the part that had left the body, and I was able to look back and see the body functioning. And I could see that those same thoughts that I'd been having were arising in the mind of this body. And all 5 of the skandhas were functioning normally, but I wasn't in that. And so the part that I was in was absolutely crystal clear, aware, absolutely calm and positive, with no arisings whatsoever. So for about 6 weeks, I spent quite a lot of time. I spent most of the time outside of the body, looking back at the body. I would come back into the body when I ate and things like that. And during that time, I left Sri Lanka. My visa expired, and I went to Bombay to meet my brother. And I got a message from my brother that he was going to be delayed a while. So I checked into this cheap hotel and got a small room with a little bed. And before I went to Bombay, before the retreat in Sri Lanka, I'd been planning, if I went to Bombay, to really enjoy myself, because it's a great place to walk. There's ocean all around. It has great restaurants with live music. It has movies in the original English rather than dubbed into a local language. And so I realized when I got to Bombay that I had this plan to really enjoy myself after the retreat. But in this state where I'm outside of my body, it was absolutely impossible for an arising to happen to do something for pleasure. It was just not possible. That did not occur in this entity that was outside of the body. And so I sat in this little hotel room all day. I would sleep at night. Once a day, I would have them send up an omelet and some toast and some tea. And basically, I would just sit there with a pristine mind, no possibility of any kind of desire, no possibility of any kind of preference. I would just sit there and be aware. That then eventually, after about 6 weeks, that wore off, and I didn't do that anymore. But during that time, when you're outside the body, the non-self aspect of reality really makes itself plain. What was outside the body could not be called a self. It was just awareness with lots of positive qualities, and absolutely no trace of the skandhas, and no trace of the kilesas or defilements anymore. And so I experienced that for about 6 weeks, and during that time, the skandhas, which I could look at, just kept functioning normally. They would do whatever they needed to do, and and they were absolutely clearly, for sure, not me. I don't know if that makes it any clearer.
That's actually, that does help. It sounds to me like you got affirmation, you actually know this. You actually know what you're talking about, so to speak, from your own experience. And now it's going to be like, I'm going to be hankering after these out of body experiences for my own, my own knowledge that I'll be what affirming this at the moment concept, this path to actually knowing, and not just understanding or getting curious about it or having a feeling, but having.
Well, don't hanker after out of body experiences. Instead, use this teaching to recognize that this firm identity with the body and the skandhas is probably erroneous, because you definitely were not your body before you were conceived, and you definitely will not be your body, the same body that you're in now. You won't be that 100 years from now or 200 years from now. So just remind yourself once in a while that all of these things that we think we are temporary, and therefore, if we have any enduring quality, which the Buddha said we do, then they must be something different. And so just sort of know that the teaching is from the Buddha and from others like myself, that we are something beyond the skandhas, and then just watch your skandhas as they function, and don't try to create out of body experiences. That's they. My impression is they sort of have to happen on their own when the time is right, you know. And I mean, you could go off into the wilderness in the far north and wait for a bear to come scratching at your door. That might speed up the process, but I don't recommend that, you know.
Thanks.
I was very happy to not be a midnight snack that day, you know.
Well, thank you, Lama. Said this is workable. This last little bit is totally
Yeah.
workable. Thank you.
Lama, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you went from Sri Lanka, I think you were out of the body, but when you transferred to Bombay, you have to take a flight.
Yeah.
So you did that, all those things with being outside of your body?
Mostly, yeah. But you
So
see, the thing is, what the part of you that's outside the body doesn't need to check in, doesn't need a seat, doesn't need lunch. The body, the body was there, and it did what it did, you know.
what happened, like when you check in the airplane or something back in that time, there's no really, like, you have to talk with somebody else to check in.
Yeah,
And your body does that, and then you're just observing it,
yeah.
and no formation comes into you.
No formations in me. No, there were
In
formations in the body, but not me. No.
the formation happens in the body, but not to your consciousness or whatever it is.
The consciousness in the body is still there, and formations happen there. Perception happens there.
Okay.
All the workings of your skandhas happen in the body, and happen with the body. And the part I'm talking about was separate from that and not involved in any of that.
Hmm.
But I made it to Bombay and I made it to the hotel. And I had an omelet every day or a couple of eggs and some toast. I didn't die.
Mm.
Yeah. Barb-
Lama said, I guess I'm kind of like Satsu in that it's hard to understand how the body keeps functioning without the mind, or is it the mind split and went out,
the
or
mind is still there.
in the body?
5 skandhas
So-
include what we consider our mind.
But then what is outside then of the body that's totally functioning in a
That's the question. What is that outside? It's not a self. It's not made of anything. It's awareness. It has all the positive qualities like love and compassion and a little bit of wisdom and stuff like that. And that's who we really are.
I don't think I'm quite there yet, but thank you so much. I'm just
came-
trying to get how one functions without the other.
So I was with Osho for a little while, and Osho described the night of his enlightenment when he was 21 years old. He woke up in the middle of the night and he just felt this urge to be outside with nature. So in the middle of the night, he got up and left his house and went to a park a few blocks away and went into the park, and it was just nature, trees, and all that sort of stuff. And he said when he got there, he sat down and he didn't do anything, but one by one, all the parts of him that he knew, one by one fell away. And eventually he reached a point where every single part or piece of what he thought of as himself fell away. And then he said what remained was only God. So that's a completely different way of explaining this situation, that an enlightened being who is in a theistic culture, when all the parts of them fall away, all of the things that are temporary, all of the things that are not them, all that remains is God. But in Buddhism, we would say all that remains is who you really are. And who you really are does not include a self, but it includes awareness, love, compassion, wisdom, all of clarity, all of those things, you know.
Thank you.
So the contemplation for everybody should be, okay, if I'm not the 5 skandhas, who am I? And then you look to who the Buddha was, who Nagarjuna was, who Saraha was, who the Karmapa was, who all these great enlightened masters are. Once they are no longer the self, when all the parts of the individuality have fallen away and clearly seen to be unreal, what remains?
Hello,
Hello?
sir. I want to address the depth of your wisdom. When I wanted to find out who I was, I started cutting off all my limbs and my head and my body. And then I was checking, and there wasn't anything different. So I said, who am I? It's not as if you're dissolving anything, you know. I want to appreciate that I have not heard this teaching that's similar to mine, honest. I'm just a natural guy and stupid. I appreciate that very much. And I'm glad you told your audience this, you know, like it's very simple.
Yeah,
It's not difficult.
yeah. So what would be more fun is when you suddenly burst out and say, "Who am I?" The voice from the heart said, "Who wants to know?"
Yeah, yeah. And answer your own question.
Yeah,
Take care, sir. Take care.
you're welcome. Okay, unless there's a last comment or question, we can wrap it up.
Lama, I have a question. So when you are observing yourself outside your body, do you call that as a Dhammakaya?
Well, you can't possibly call it anything because the part of you that's outside of the body
Mhm.
doesn't think in terms of concepts. It doesn't put name and form on things. You know, independent origination, we saw that from ignorance, condition arises eventually after 2 or 3 steps, name and form. So it's your skandhas that want to know whether it's Dharmakaya or not, but the part outside the body doesn't think in terms of concepts at all, and doesn't want names for things, doesn't need to know what anything is.
Did you have a bliss um within being that state?
Pardon?
Did you experience a bliss
A what?
being in that state? The you know you being outside the body.
Bliss, yeah. Yeah, well, there was a little bliss, but you know, when people experience bliss in various states, it can be a little bit of bliss or a whole lot of bliss. And I'm one of those people that only gets a little bit of bliss. So there was a little bit of bliss, and you know, so it was a good state, you know. But it's not here today, so you know.
Ah,
Lama, when you had the stream entrance, was it the really great bliss or was it just a little bit of bliss you felt?
No, that was big bliss. That was really big bliss,
Mm.
and it lasted for a long time.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, good. Well, let's wrap it up then. Thank you all for coming. I don't know what we're going to talk about next time. Maybe the 5 hindrances. How about we go for the 5 hindrances next time, Brian?
Okay, I'll send out a notice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. Let's dedicate any merit up to now from all sources and times to all beings that each without exception attain the ultimate for themselves.
Thank you, Lama.
Thank you, Lama.
You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone.